Back in October, Bungie made this disaster of a tweet, which you can see right here, got over 10k quote tweets and over 17,000 responses versus a mere 5,300 likes. That tweet had read, "Being Latin AEOX is more than just a location on a map, just as being Hispanic is more than the language we might speak. We are proud to introduce our newest idea, Latin at Bungie." That led to them getting this community note, which translates to, quote-unquote Latinx is not representative of the majority of the Latino community. Quote-unquote Latinx is considered offensive as it is created and imposed by U.S. citizens. The correct terms are Latino and Latina, and more progressive is Latin. That tweet getting top responses, such as, Bungie hid more replies here than they banned cheaters. And here's some of the hidden tweets. They don't want you to see this stuff. Replies hidden by Bungie. It's Latina, Latino. Anything else is a slur. 12,000 likes on that one. Remember, their tweet only got like 5,000 likes. This one with over 18,000 likes reads, Hispanics when you call them a slur, Hispanics when you call them Latinx. With 10,000 likes, they hid this one as well. Says, which white, non-Hispanic employee wrote this? They just hide it. 3,400 likes. Calling a Latino or Latina Latinx is a good way to get yourself a nice beatdown. They don't subscribe to our Western nonsense, and it's a gendered language to start with. Quit applying our garbage to people who want nothing to do with it. Here's another interesting response that reads, Bungie virtue signaling hard about Latinx, cringe term nobody likes, while being sued for racial discrimination. This is peak 2023. Sort of like Bethesda being right in the middle of a transphobia lawsuit, and then putting pronouns into Starfield, which, by the way, didn't really do anything anyways. As always, when a corporation or someone else virtue signals, they're often just hiding the skeletons in their own closet. Shockingly, however, there's still a large amount of people who eat that corporate slop and that virtue signal nonsense up, and they don't actually see through the fakeness of it all. Back to Bungie, and the post-Latinx disaster of a tweet that they made. Less than a month after they made that tweet, in the news, Bungie hit with layoffs as Destiny 2, the final shape and marathon are reportedly delayed. That brings us to today's news, a follow-up on the layoff situation, reported from December 6th on IGN. Headline, Bungie devs say atmosphere is soul-crushing amid layoffs, cuts, and fear of total Sony takeover. And yes, this actually does relate to the Latinx stuff. We'll get to that in just a moment. They say, 1 month after a major round of layoffs impacted roughly 100 Bungie employees of 1,200, those remaining at the Destiny developer say the cuts, as well as other cost-cutting measures, came alongside an apparent scramble by studio leadership to avoid a total Sony takeover. As it currently stands, Bungie is, on paper, a fully independent subsidiary of Sony, but its board of directors has been divided since the takeover in July of 2022. Multiple current employees confirmed to IGN that the company has implemented numerous other cost-cutting measures recently, including a studio-wide hiring freeze, reduced travel budgets, elimination of holiday bonuses, keeping its annual Bungie Day virtual, delaying its week-long company pentathlon event to next December, and reducing numerous morale events such as cooking and knitting classes from monthly to quarterly. Bungie is also pausing or fully ending benefits like annual employee compensation adjustments to meet market rates, its new higher lunch program, employee donation matching, its peer recognition program, and gift cards for employees' birthdays. And yearly studio performance bonuses this year will only be the contractually obligated 80% minimum after being above 100% for good performance several previous years running. My whole life I've been around very hardworking people, and I still just can't grasp the concept of these tech companies and how cushy these jobs are, where they're offered knitting classes and cooking classes and things like that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying people should be breaking their backs for companies that don't care about them. I myself worked years at a restaurant, and one of the first things I was taught from a busboy on like day 1 or 2 who was training me was he told me, don't break your back for this company, it's not worth it. And that was good advice. It doesn't mean you don't work hard though, and there's some times when you definitely need to work real hard if it's getting really busy and you got a bunch of tables, you know, whatever the circumstance may be in that line of work or someone else's line of work. But going back to this tech company stuff, man, crazy how cushy a lot of those jobs are. And then a lot of those people, not all, but a lot of them you see, have this very pompous attitude where they act like their job is the hardest thing in the world. Now back to the Bungie news and how it relates to that Latinx stuff is mentioned. IGN further writing, what's more, sources we spoke to pointed out that many of the Bungie employees who were laid off were beloved community leaders within the studio, including many who had spearheaded employee inclusion and support efforts. Several people we spoke to expressed anger at the layoff of Bungie General Counsel Don McGowan, who played a key role in Bungie winning an historic suit against a player who harassed a Bungie developer. Others laid off included a noticeable number of members of Bungie's DE&I clubs, including co-heads of Pride at Bungie, Women at Bungie, and Accessibility at Bungie. When combined with other recent resource cuts, these dismissals have led to fears these clubs might be shut down. While researching this article, IGN noted that the public news articles announcing Women at Bungie and Accessibility at Bungie on its official blog were no longer accessible on the Bungie website, though it's unclear exactly when or why this happened, or if it's just an unintentional, recurring bug with the blog. And if you don't know what DEI is, well, once again, it's just another manipulative tool that the corpos have, mostly in an attempt to try and get ESG points. If you don't know what ESG is, we'll go into that very briefly next. But for example, they say here by builtin.com, what does diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, mean in the workplace? They break down these terms if you want to pause and read this part. I'm just going to skip down to their summary. They say, well, actually, there you go. So you can see the above one as well. Combining these three elements, DE&I, is an ethos that recognizes the value of diverse voices and emphasizes inclusivity and employee well-being as central facets of success. Ah, yes, so successful. And that's exactly why Bungie is laying off a bunch of their DEI team, because it was so successful. Okay. To bring those values to life, companies must implement programs and initiatives that actively make their offices more diverse, equitable, and inclusive spaces. And what about ESG, which stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance, and how it relates to DEI? Well, GlennGuyton.com has here, how are ESG and DEI connected? While ESG and DEI may seem distinct, they are closely related. Both concepts are essential for long-term sustainability and success. They keep trying to tell you it relates to success, but actual data would suggest otherwise, and I have more on that in just a moment too. They also say, here are some of the ways in which ESG and DEI are connected. And they give some examples of that right here, such as environmental impact and diversity, social responsibility and equity, and corporate governance and inclusion. Well, just last month, Bloomberg.com wrote, bankers seek legal cover after backing $1.5 trillion of ESG debt. Risks are surfacing in the sustainability-linked loan market. SLL businesses has mushroomed amid a lack of regulatory controls. Bankers servicing one of the world's biggest ESG debt markets are now actively seeking legal protections to guard against the potential greenwashing allegations that may be ahead. In the handful of years they've existed, sustainability-linked loans have mushroomed into a $1.5 trillion market. SLLs let borrowers and lenders say that a loan is tied to some environmental or social metric. But the documentation to back those claims generally isn't available to the public, nor is the market regulated. Lawyers advising SLL bankers say the reputational risks associated with mislabeling such products are now too big to ignore. Now, all of that broadens the scope of this video a bit too much from the initial Bungie stuff, so I won't be going into further detail about the SLL part, etc., etc. However, you can certainly see how these DEI programs and how they relate to ESG is filled with manipulation and may even soon be facing immense legal repercussions. As mentioned previously, these corpos simply use these terms and programs to further pad their pockets with additional investing and finance opportunities, as well as luring in potential customers and employees with their feel-good rhetoric, so to speak, while in reality the sole goal is simply manipulation. And as I said earlier in this video as well, I'm still surprised at how many people fall for this stuff and defend the corporations, especially when you see self-proclaimed anti-capitalists on social media like Twitter actually bootlicking for the corpos the most. Odd stuff indeed. Anyways, that's all there is for this segment. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, consider letting me know what you think about it in the comments and consider liking and or subscribing. It certainly does help out and I appreciate it. And if you want to hang out live sometime, consider checking out my VTuber account in the description and I'll be live in the next few days. Thanks again and I'll see you in the next one.